Hi, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rose Chitanwat. I'm the moderator of the today's session. Welcome you to the FI Asia webinar EP7, which will focus on the functional food and gut health concept for consumer in Southeast Asia. For today, the webinar is our seventh edition, version of the F&B that will focus from the very first on what the pandemic effect on the food and beverage industry, and also what is the trend is going to happen in our region and even in the global area. From the episode 1 till now, we really know that the pandemic is really affect the perception and also the consumer behavior in our consumer of the food and beverage sector, because it is the day-to-day needs of life for everyone. So in one of the research study done by Innova Market Insight, it shows that people are looking for the products that is health concern, hygiene, and also to share with all of us that most of the buyer pattern has been shifted from going to the department store to be more on the e-commerce and delivery level. So that's bring us to the level that the education through the digital platform and technology to be used in communication to the community is very important. So today I have our honorable guest speaker from Indonesia. She is a professor from IPB University in Bogor in Indonesia. Professor Lilis Nuraida, she is researcher at the CFA Center and the lecturer of the Department of Food Science and Technology at IPB in Bogor. She will share with us on the functional food and gut health. So what is it about? In few minutes, you will enjoy her presentation. And of course, if you have the question, you can put in the blog below the Q&A session that you have question for her. She will spend about 40 minutes with us to cover on the functional food and gut health concept for today's presentation. Today's presentation we get support by ADM Fibersol. ADM make the right first call ingredients partner, whether you are looking for any single ingredients, blend or turnkey solution. ADM can help you get the market faster with consumer preferred foods and drink. So thank you for ADM to sponsor for this session. May I now invite Professor Lilis Nuraida to share the presentation. Please, Professor Lilis. Assalamu alaikum.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, moderators. And first, I would like to share my presentation. First of all, I would like to thank the Informa Markets for giving me opportunity to present the topics today in the prestigious webinar on functional food and gut health concept for consumer in the Southeast Asia. My talk today will be an introduction on functional food and functional food in Southeast Asia, functional food for the future, the importance of gut health for overall well-being, and finally, I will talk about the role of pro and prebiotics in gut health improvement. The two main functions of food have conventionally been recognized as providing nutrients as a primary functions, and sensory functions such as taste, flavor, etc. for secondary function. Nowadays, consumers are making the connection between a good diet and optimal health or disease prevention. So food has a third or tertiary function that was thought to be those pertaining to regulating physical conditions such as a function of bioregulation, disease prevention, recovery from disease, and also control of aging. Foods possessing these third functions were defined as functional foods. Functional foods actually have a quite long history. Food has been historically used as preventive medicines in many cultures around the world. Although Hippocrates did not state functional foods, but the conventional concept of functional foods has actually started by his statement. We know that his statement is, let food be the medicines and medicine be the food. Centuries afterwards, in 1980, the concept of functional foods were first proposed by a Japanese academic society, which is proposed the concept of functional foods for food products fortified with constituents that possess advantageous physical effects. And in 1991, the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare established the FOSU labeling regulation in Japan. FOSU stands for Foods for Specified Health Use. In 1993, the term functional food first appeared in the journal Nature under the heading, Japan Explored the Boundary Between Food and Medicines. Functional food has created a lucrative market and becoming an emerging segment of products in food markets. But there is no universally accepted definition of the evolving food category. So many institutions have individual definition, as shown in this example of the definitions defined by ILSI, European Commission Concentrated Action on Functional Food Science in Europe, the American Dietetic Association, International Food Information Council, as well as Institute of Food Technology. However, although there are different definitions, however, the bottom line are similar, that the concept of functional foods embraces those that provide a health benefit beyond basic nutrition, as demonstrated to have physiological benefits and or reduce risk of chronic disease. Similar to the definition, there is no classification of functional food used globally. However, in general, functional food can be classified first as natural food with improved compositions, employing particular agronomic conditions, including genetic engineering. And the second is that food including a health promoting component, and food from which a component with adverse effect has been removed, and food in which the nature of one or more of its component has been chemically improved, and food in which the bioavailability of one or more of its component has been increased. So the functional foods may include conventional food, which exists as natural food or processed food, and modified foods such as fortified, enriched, or enhanced food. Functionality of functional foods is derived from bioactive compounds. The bioactive compounds is extra nutritional constituents that typically occurs in small quantities in food. Bioactive compounds in food help in the prevention of chronic diseases and enhancement of performance of well-being for the individuals beyond their established role in nutritional function, such as functions as antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, antifungal, and various additional preventive properties. Examples of bioactive compounds include phytochemicals, marine-based, animal-based bioactive compounds, as well as microorganisms. Nowadays, the most popular functional food ingredients include probiotics and prebiotics, which help gut health, dietary fibers, omega-3 fatty acid, oleic acid in phytosterol, especially providing health benefit in prevention coronary heart disease and lowering cholesterol. Phytoestrogens and many phenolic compounds such as flavonoid, phenolic acid, and tannins serve as antioxidants. Those bioactive compounds exist in different kinds of foods with different concentrations. For example, in oats, usually cited as a source of fibers, and also some bioactive compounds present in fermented milk, as well as in traditional fermented foods such as tempeh, kimchi, and many others fermented products. This is an example where we can find the fibers, the dietary fiber, for example, from wheat bran, corn bran, fruit skin, as well as beta-glucan, soluble fiber, whole grain from different sources with potential benefit, especially reduce coronary heart disease and many others functions for well-being. Among polyphenol compounds, flavonoids is one of the compounds. There are many flavonoids compounds, which is we can have from many sources, especially fruits and vegetables, with the potential benefit, especially for antioxidants, and also many others have benefit to maintain well-being. What about a functional food in Southeast Asia? So in Asia, functional food have been regarded as integral part of traditional cultures. High content of polyphenol or phenolic compounds, herb and spices has been traditionally used for medication as well as for cooking in Southeast Asia countries. For example, Indonesian jamu, consisting of herb and spices, has been used as a traditional medicine, although this is not food, but classified in Indonesia as traditional medicine, but many of spices used in jamu also used in cooking. Southeast Asian diet also rich in cereals and tubers. Some of them contain high fibers, and also soybean, which high in isoflavone, for example, also part of the Southeast Asian diet. Variety fruits and vegetable is high in phytochemical, also part of Southeast Asian diet. As other functional foods may also include tea and mushroom. Southeast Asia country also rich in a variety of fermented foods, soybean-based, milk-based, as well as fruit and vegetable-based. In the market, there are many functional foods as pre-packed foods and ready-to-eat foods, including snacks, for example, high-fiber snacks, probiotic-containing snack, and dairy products, mostly beverages containing probiotics, fruit vegetable-based, and high-fiber drinks. Okay, this is the example of our fermented foods from different substrates with different names. However, although different substrate and different names across Southeast Asia country, however, we share similarity in the way of fermenting them, as well as also the raw material, as well as the characteristic of the products. What is the benefit of fermented food? So the fermented food design contain bioactive compounds. The fermented food also contain beneficial microorganisms, which is I will talk later on. I would like to give you an example of fermented food is tempeh. Tempeh is a fermented food originated from Indonesia, however, now has been known globally because of the nutritional content as well as the bioactive compounds. Many researches has been done to support the presence of the bioactive compounds in tempeh as well as their health benefit effects. For example, tempeh rich in isoflavone aglycone, which is we know that the isoflavone presence in soybean in gluconate form, which is bound into carbohydrate, into glucose. However, during fermentation, this compound is released, and the compound also act as antioxidant and exhibit estrogen-like function. Other compound deliberated during fermentation is peptide, which is also serve as antioxidant, and angiotensin 1 converting enzyme inhibitor. This enzyme is regulating the blood pressure for high blood pressure. So by inhibiting ACE inhibitor could regulate the blood pressure. Other bioactive compounds present in tempeh including phenolic compounds, serving as antioxidant, as well as factor 2, gamma aminobutyric acid as anti-hypertensive, superoxide dismutase as free radical scavengers. Tempeh also contain antimicrobial agents for diarrhea causing bacteria, as tempeh also rich in vitamin B12, and then B12 is not produced by the rhizopus, by the mold, however, by other bacteria which is grow together with mold. Tempeh also rich in fiber and oligosaccharides. Tempeh fermentation is not only using Rhizopus oligosporus, however, some other microorganisms like lactic acid bacteria and yeast also present in considerable amount during fermentation. Especially for lactic acid bacteria, could serve as immunobiotics, could enhance immune system. As a postbiotic is the metabolite produced during fermentation by lactic acid bacteria, and paraprobiotics or inactivated probiotics, because usually we fry tempeh, we cook tempeh, we don't eat tempeh in a fresh form. Probiotics, paraprobiotics also called as a ghost probiotic, because the microorganism is already inactivated by processing. Other example is fermented milk, which is also contain variety of bioactive compounds from peptides, conjugated linolenic acid, gamma amino, butyric acids, oligosaccharides, vitamin, and also beta-galactosidase. This is very important enzymes, especially for Southeast Asian population, where according to research that many ASEAN people have a lactose intolerance, which is some people have a problem in metabolizing lactose from milk. By the help of beta-galactosidase produced by lactic acid bacteria, the lactose intolerance could be alleviated. Lactic acid bacteria in fermented milk also could serve as a probiotics, as well as immunobiotic, postbiotics, and paraprobiotics. About the probiotics, I will talk later. The probiotic is the live microorganisms, and fermented milk usually eaten freshly. Among the fermented vegetables, kimchi is the most studied. Although this kimchi is from South Korea, but others of fermented vegetables similar to kimchi also present in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines, and other Southeast Asia countries. Kimchi made from Chinese leaf. Kimchi contains various health-promoting components such as beta-carotene, chlorophyll, vitamin C, and dietary fibers. Kimchi also has activities of bioactive compounds for anti-mutagen, antioxidant, and angiotensin-converting enzyme. Kimchi, as fermented by lactic acid bacteria, could also serve as a source of lactic acid bacteria, which acting as some of them could act as probiotic, postbiotic, or paraprobiotics. Other lactic acid bacteria fermented juices like apple and many other vegetables also contain phenolic compounds, GABA peptides, conjugated linoleic acid, and folate, which serve as antioxidant activities. How about functional food for the future? The consumption of functional food has emerged as a major consumer-driven trend. People now are living in a fast life, get many stressors and changes in their eating habit. So many people are prone to getting sick easily, especially those related to chronic disease such as obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. As well, especially in this pandemic condition, many people looking for healthy foods. At the same time, however, growing awareness of the potentially beneficial effect of healthy foods, including functional food, is leading millions of people adopt better eating habits. Other driving force for functional food include increased consumer interest in controlling their own health, such as the current condition, demographic, including increases in elders and ethnic subpopulation, escalating healthcare costs, and also increase in disposable income. The aging population in region also contributes to the development of health and health-related food categories, which is functional food. Recent scientific research support the health benefit of many common foods and consumer increasingly recognize. So evidence-based science linking diet to chronic disease risk reduction also has driven the development of functional foods. Today, food is not merely viewed as vehicle for essential nutrients to ensure proper growth and development, but also a route to optimal wellness. Increasing income also demand for more premium product, thus becoming a challenge for food manufacturer while competing highly competitive in the food market. So the challenge for food manufacturers is to produce products that are not only fulfill gastronomic pleasure, but will also help reduce the risk of developing different metabolic diseases. Also, the challenges to personalize nutrition to provide precise solution to different health problems. Okay, what is the relations between functional foods and gut microbiota? The dynamic relationship between the microbiotic ecosystem in gastrointestinal tract and its host is emphasized by the joint utilization of consumed nutrient. Diet is a shared substrate between the host and the gut microbiota, and the choice of diet will affect host health both directly and indirectly by affecting the abundance and composition of the microbiotic community. When foods with bioactive compounds are consumed, the foods will alter microbiota composition of the gut, and some are metabolized by the gut microbiota to produce metabolites product with biological activities such as short-chain fatty acid, bile acid, and trimethylamines, and many others bioactive compounds. The good balance of microbial composition and the beneficial metabolites as well as the bioactive compounds will provide the health impact to the consumer or to the host. Okay, the importance of gut healthy from overall well-being, I could explain in the human gastrointestinal tract. In humans, the gastrointestinal tract harbor approximately 10 to the 14 microbial cells. This is about 10 times the number of eukaryotic cells in the body. Bacteria contributing to this intestinal microbiota niche belong to more than 10,000 different species, harboring more than 3 million bacterial genes and amount to biomass approximately 2 kg, which some researchers also suggest that this microbiota is as an internal organ and provide many functions that are crucial for the host well-being. Microbes inhabit the human body, collectively forming the human microbiota. This microbiota create a complex, organ-specific, and adaptive ecosystem which continually impact the host physiology. Together, they play a pivotal part in human physiology and modulating the host internal environment through influencing digestion, immune development, vitamin production, and overall well-being, thereby play a major role in host health. The gastrointestinal tract of bacteria is dominated by members of only 4 bacteria phyla: Firmicutes, Bacteroidetes, Proteobacteria, and Actinobacteria. The human gastrointestinal tract hosts a nutrient-rich environment that supports a commensal microbiome, providing crucial function that cannot be carried out alone by the host. The function of gut microbiota could be classified into three functions. First is protective function for improving barrier and increasing the resistance to colonization by opportunistic pathogens and secretions of antimicrobial peptides, for example. The second function is metabolic function, which is the microbiota do colonic fermentation to produce short-chain fatty acids, and which is helpful to control epithelial cell differentiations and proliferations, as well as other health benefits. The third function is structural function, including maturations of the intestinal epithelium, induction IgA, and the immune system, modulations of immune system. Gut microbes also key to many aspects of human health, including immune, metabolics, and neurobehavioral traits. So there is communications between gut microbiota with the lungs, what we call it gut-lung axis, and also the communications between microbiota with the big brain, which is we call it gut-brain axis. So the health conditions or the health status of the gut will affect the health status of the lungs and also the brain, as well as other organs. In these pictures, I show how the role of the gut microbiota in health and disease. Gut microbiota influences many areas of human health, from innate immunity to appetite and energy metabolisms. The gut microbiota affects other organs by producing metabolites, short-chain fatty acid, indole-propionic acid, and trimethylamine, which is that bring about changes when they reach other organs. To the left is in the disease condition where there are many detrimental metabolite produced by bad bacteria, and to the right is the health status where there are many beneficial metabolites produced by good bacteria. So for the gut-brain axis, this is the concept that a bidirectional channel of communication between the big brain, and the little brain. The little brain is the gut. There are several routes of communications between the brain and the gut microbiota through nerves and through immune system, and to the production of short-chain fatty acid by gut microbiota. The CFA is the food for the brain, and also producing tryptophan, which is the important precursor to serotonin, is the primary neurotransmitter, and many other metabolites as neurotransmitter. An abnormal microbiota release an inflammatory mediators and other neuroactive molecules, result in changes in cognition and behavior. Alternatively, stress can also lead to the gut dysfunction. Gut-lung axis is less studied than GBA. There is also a link between gut microbiota and lung immunity. Dysbiosis in gut microbiota is associated with lung disorder and respiratory infection. Similarly, the dysbiosis of lung microbiota is also accompanied by disturbances in gut microbiota due to movement of bacteria from their lung into bloodstream. Okay. How about the relation between microbiota, diversity, and health? A healthy balanced state marked by high diversity and abundance of microbial population in gastrointestinal tract, what we call it eubiosis, which is dominated by lactic acid and short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria. A pathogenic state of the gastrointestinal tract marked by a diminished microbiota, leading to an imbalanced microbial population, which is we call it dysbiosis. which can be caused by a range of factors, including diet high in processed food, lack of regular sleep, so sleep is very important to keep healthy gut, antibiotics, and physical-social stress. The microbiota composition is also affected by age, that the adults have less diverse microbiota. Antibiotic treatments also shift to less microbial diversity. Overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria result in an increase in lipopolysaccharides level, which triggers the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines in the gut. The associations between reduced diversity and disease indicates that a specific rich gut ecosystem is more robust against environmental influences. Diversity seems to be a generally good indicator of healthy guts. Lower bacterial diversity has been reproducibly observed in people with inflammatory bowel disease, for example, diabetic people, atopic eczema, celiac disease, obesity, and many other diseases that stiffness than in healthy controls. So preventing dysbiosis is the key, as modulating gut microbiota after infection proves difficulties. To modulate from dysbiosis to eubiosis status could be used probiotic, prebiotic, or the mixtures of both, what we call it symbiotics. This picture showing the alteration in the gut commensal bacterial diversity lead to pathogenesis, as shown on the left side, and probiotics and prebiotics have a prominent roles in restoring commensal gut microbiota. The commonly used probiotic for the treatment usually Lactobacillus and Bifidobacteria. However, there are many others microorganisms, including Bacillus and Saccharomyces, that has been shown also to function as probiotics. Okay, what is probiotics? As mentioned before, the probiotics and prebiotics could be used to manipulate gut microbiota. Probiotics has been defined by WHO as live microorganisms that, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit to the host. And this definition has been adopted globally. However, the microorganisms to be able to be classified or recognized as a probiotic have to go through evaluation in vitro, in vivo, and clinical trial to prove that the microorganisms has health beneficial effect. Probiotic usually added to food, both fermented and non-fermented, or taken as food supplements. The second is prebiotics. Prebiotic definition has evolved since the prebiotic word is introduced some time ago. Recently, the expert panel statement that a prebiotic is defined as a substrate that is selectively utilized by host microorganisms, conferring a health benefits. Although all compounds considered prebiotic are microbiota accessible carbohydrate or fermentable dietary fiber, the reverse is not true, meaning that not all dietary fiber can function as probiotic, because of the key for the prebiotic is selectively utilized by host microorganism. And symbiotic contain a mixture of prebiotic and probiotics. Okay, the concept of traditional probiotics was initially based on the observations of Professor Eli Metchnikoff, and he suggested that the regular consumption of fermented dairy products with lactic acid bacteria, such as yogurt, was associated with enhanced health and longevity in elderly Bulgarian people. Some of the bacterial organisms present in the large intestine were source of toxic substances that contribute to illness and aging. And acid-producing microorganisms in fermented dairy product could lead to a prolongation of lifespan consumer by inhibiting the microorganisms producing toxic substances or pathogenic microorganism. So it is possible to adopt measures to modify the flora in the bodies and to replace the harmful microbe by useful microbes. The scientific rationale behind this concept was published in his book Prolongations of Life, which is published in 1907. So the beneficial effect of probiotics could be classified into 3 groups. First is as intestinal microbial or alter intestinal microbial composition into more balanced gut microbiota, into eubiosis state. And also probiotics serve as immunomodulations, and as probiotic also produce many metabolics with also affects the health status, such as GABA, as well as lactase enzymes, as well as short-chain fatty acid. Originally, probiotics were isolated from healthy human. However, now many probiotics has been researched from traditional fermented food and many other food, and mostly belong to Lactobacillus and Bifidobacteria. And probiotic properties, we have to know, is strain dependent. So not all species, not all strain are equal. So not all yogurt or fermented foods are equal. Besides lactic acid bacteria strain that have been permitted and used commercially, also there are some non-lactic acid bacteria like Saccharomyces cerevisiae or Saccharomyces boulardii and Bacillus coagulans. Okay, this is the example how the local probiotics could also be studied for the probiotic potency. This is the example from Indonesian fermented food, mostly Lactobacillus genera from Plantarum species and Rhamnosus, but with different strain. So the potency including preventing diarrhea, increased immune response, and increasing short-chain fatty acid, as well as regulating the gluconeogenesis gene, which is involved in regulating or in preventions of diabetes. Then next topic is prebiotics. Prebiotics, as I mentioned before, is a substrate that is selectively utilized by host microorganisms, conferring a health benefit. So prebiotic requires selective utilization by live host microorganisms, not simply enzymes or bioactive chemical. The criteria of selective utilization distinguish probiotic from many other substances. So the probiotic differ from most dietary fibers such as pectin, cellulose, and silans, which is not metabolized by microorganisms. A probiotic should not be broadly metabolized by elicit a metabolic bias. So over 20 years ago, a class of compound termed prebiotic, mostly fructooligosaccharides, inulin, bosmos, and as well as oligosaccharides. So, however, recently, the studies show that beside oligosaccharides, there are many bioactive compounds could also support the growth of the probiotic bacteria in the colon, such as some of the phenolics and phytochemical, some of polyunsaturated fatty acid. Human milk also contain rich of oligosaccharides, so could be classified as prebiotics. Any substances could also affect the microbiome. However, if it is not metabolized or utilized by microorganisms conferring to health benefit, is not classified as a probiotic. So the probiotics effect has been evolved. It's not only from the gut function in the gut, and as also function in any other health benefit. This one, as I mentioned before, this is showing the examples of the probiotic that has been researched for about 20 years, is mainly inulin, host, and GOS. Okay, current health benefit probiotic are evolving, including the main function is of the direct function is the inhibitions of pathogen and also immune stimulation. So prebiotic used as a substrate to support the growth positive bacteria and also to produce short chain fatty acid. This short chain fatty acid could affect the health status of other organs, such as also support the cardio-metabolisms, as well as the food of the brain, so support the mental health and brain function and cognition. And also prebiotics help the mineral bioavailability or have the absorptions of the minerals. Okay, this is showing you the natural sources of probiotics from our food. However, the concentrations in the natural source is variety, and in some is very low concentration. So we have to eat a lot of the natural probiotics to get beneficial effect. Therefore, some prebiotic has been extracted and concentrated and added to the food. This also how the effect the bioactive compound and probiotic toward gut microbiota compositions, such as fiber and prebiotics increase microbiota diversity and short chain fatty acid production, as well as polyphenol, which is increased intestinal barrier protectors and butyrate producing bacteria, and while decreasing lipopolysaccharide producer, which is pathogenic bacteria. And also non-digestible carbohydrate, dietary fiber, and other examples of probiotic effect on the gut microbiota composition, and as the outcome is on health mediated by gut microbiota, like reductions in metabolic related diseases. Okay, symbiotic is a mixture of probiotic and prebiotics, improving the survival and implantation of live microbial dietary supplement in gastrointestinal tract. This is the example of the pair of prebiotics and probiotic that has been used. And finally, application probiotics in foods. So food to deliver probiotics of microorganisms is not limited on the fermented product, and also is not limited on milk-based, but also involve non-milk-based. Although milk is a good carrier for probiotics because of the buffering capacity, however, recently there are many products developed for probiotic carriers from non-milk-based. Both of them, milk-based or non-milk-based, could be used as a substance for fermentations or for preparing non-fermented foods. For fermentations, probiotic used as a starter culture. However, when we want to include the probiotics into non-fermented foods, but we have to put a microencapsulated. So the microencapsulated could protect the probiotic during processing, and also and different environment from non-milk based, as well as to protect during the travel from the mouth into the colon. Finally, I would like to summarize my presentation today that the functional food further solidify Hippocrates' idea to let the food be the medicines, and the probiotic concept was coined to reflect Eli Mechnikov idea. Health of human digestive system is closely linked to their overall health, as it interacts and influences so many systems and processes in the body, including immune system, metabolic, and neurobehavioral traits. Bioactive compounds in functional foods also affect microbial diversity and are metabolized to produce beneficial substances by gut microbiota. The benefits of probiotic and prebiotic has been expanded to the site other than gastrointestinal tract, including cardiometabolism, mental health, and immune system. Before I close my presentation, I would like to pay a special tribute to those two gentlemen who has laid their thought for the developments of functional food as we know today, Hippocrates and Professor Eli Mechnikov. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lilis, for very useful technical presentation you have been given to the audience. You will be surprised that there are more than 20 questions coming in. And back to your presentation, Doctor, there is a simple question because I think the audience here has both Indonesian, Korean, Thai. They want to know that what is jamu and tempeh? Can you explain a bit? I know that jamu is one type of fruit and tempeh is one type of soy fermented cake. Can you give the answer to the audience?
Okay. Sorry, can you please emphasize the question? I'm sorry.
The question is what is tempeh, T-E-M-P-E, and jamu? Yeah.
Okay. Tempeh and jamu. Okay. Okay. Tempeh is a fermented foods made of yellow soybean. The fermentation is carried out by mold Rhizopus oligosporus. But during the fermentation, there are many other microorganisms like lactic acid bacteria and yeast also growing and other bacteria who also enrich the nutrition and the bioactive compounds of tempeh. Tempeh is an important part of daily diet of Indonesians. So no day without tempeh for Indonesian. Well, usually cooked as many kind of dishes and also could be fried, could be cooked as a stew, and as well as could be used for raw material for making tempeh burger. Especially this product is very important helping vegetarian. So tempeh rich in the conventional nutrition, rich in carbohydrate, protein. So before tempeh has been considered as a cheap protein source. Until today, tempeh is also a cheap protein source. And however, since there are many bioactive compounds produced during fermentation, tempeh now is also have the functions beyond the conventional nutrition. And jamu is actually not food. However, is a traditional medicine consisting of many kinds of herbs and spices, which is because the taste of jamu usually is not very pleasant taste. People also put some palm sugar into jamu. However, nowadays, many beverages, which is more pleasant, more accepted to the consumer, has been developed using herb and spices. Yeah, so jamu as classifies as a traditional medicines.
So you guys have tempeh every day, so you have very good gut health. Microflora.
Yes, hopefully, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yes,
For the next question, Doctor, is about the audience asks, can you clarify about the difference between paraprobiotics and postbiotics?
Okay. Paraprobiotics and postbiotics. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. This concept is still not coined into definition used globally or agreed globally, because this concept is come out when the question where probiotic has been well defined and adopted globally. However, since there are many products, fermented products, that may not contain probiotics, but contain dead probiotics, for example, but also contain metabolite produced by probiotic bacteria. So then many researchers suggested the concept of paraprobiotics and postbiotics. Paraprobiotics, as I mentioned before, some also call as a ghost probiotic. Ghost is for dead, dead body. So actually paraprobiotic is inactivated probiotics. So inactivated microorganisms. However, those inactivated microorganisms also deliver health beneficial function. For example, the function also include the cell wall of the microorganisms that stimulate the immune system. The postbiotic is also, we call it as non-viable, but postbiotic is the metabolites produced by microorganisms during growth in the fermentation, especially the metabolite produced by microorganism or by lactic acid bacteria, for example. For example, is enzymes. Enzymes may be produced, or short chain fatty acid may be produced during fermentation. However, because of some fermented food or cooked before consumption, or the fermentation is not done by probiotic bacteria, so when we consume those food, we cannot obtain the health beneficial effect from probiotics, but we still can have a beneficial effect from the metabolites produced by the microorganism during fermentation, that such as short chain fatty acid or the enzymes beta-galactosidase or lactase, for example. So this kind of metabolites produced by probiotic, we call it as a postbiotic. So the postbiotic is the metabolite, the paraprobiotic is the cell or cell component that has also have health beneficial effects.
I think the audience get very clear answer from you. So right now we have a lot of questions left. I think we have about like 7 or 8 minutes. But however, I try to cover all the questions that I compiled from this Q&A. Doctor, the question next is about, as you are like consultant and lecturer and researcher, what do you see the next 5 years trend on prebiotic, especially on like resistant starch or dietary fiber? How you see this prebiotic demand, and how is the use or any research done?
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned before, that during the 20 years, the substances classified as prebiotics mostly fructans and galactans. However, since the progress of research, that is not only those carbohydrates that also fulfill the or can support the growth microorganisms selectively utilized. So the word is selectively utilized by beneficial microorganism. So there are many other substances, including resistant starch. Resistant starch is different with starch, that usually starch is absorbed by, could be metabolized by our enzymes. However, the key of the probiotic is that the substrate that cannot be absorbed or metabolized by upper part of our gastrointestinal tract. So they go through down to the colon, and in the colon is metabolized by a beneficial microorganism. So by these open windows on the prebiotic, there should come more substances could be classified as prebiotic from different sources, and extracted and concentrated. So, so to me, that research on prebiotics from different sources, including, it's not only limited to carbohydrates, and as could also involving bioactive compounds. Nowadays, there are many research on how the bioactive compounds could be metabolized by microorganisms in the colon. So bioactive compound could be from tea, for example, from vegetables, and also from fruits.
Yeah, and honey is can be positioning as a good prebiotic. Honey,
okay.
There is a question, does honey has good positioning as a prebiotic?
Yes, not so many research on honey. Yeah, not so many research on honey related to the prebiotic, because the most sugar present in honey is fructose and glucose, which is readily to be absorbed by human body. So we'll left nothing or a very small amount for the microorganism. However, in related to the functional food about honey, honey is rich in antioxidants. Honey enriched in antioxidant, and recently also there are many research, or not so many, research started on the presence of lactic acid bacteria in honey. Honey actually not very good condition to live for the microorganisms because acid and as well as very low water activity, not very low, but quite low water activity because of the high sugar content. However, there are some lactic acid bacteria could survive, and also they may also during the maturation of honey, they can also produce some bioactive compounds. And some research also showing that microorganisms isolated from honey also show the probiotic characteristic, although the research is still very preliminary. Yeah.
All right, so there is the question also regarding to the honey, doctor. Yes. I'm not sure whether I pronounce right or not. It's called Keluluit honey.
Keluluit.
I'm not sure.
It's a kind of bees. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
the audience has pre-question asking whether it helps in immune booster.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, as I mentioned before, that flavonoids and polyphenol, which act as antioxidant, is rich in honey. So, as an antioxidant. And secondly, as I mentioned also, that honey now has been known that honey contain lactic acid bacteria. So, indirectly, those two substances could also contribute to the immune system. Yeah, that's my answer.
Right. So from the presentation, even my understanding would understand that probiotic is like the live good bacteria, right? So in food processing, doctor, there would be the many types of food processing like boiling, frying, drying, or put in the steam. So the question is, when the probiotic pass through this food processing, how to maintain the probiotic in food, and what is the food processing method that is best to remain probiotic in the food?
Okay, thank you. Very good questions for the applications of probiotic in many different kind of foods. Yeah, for fermented food, which is consumed freshly, like fermented vegetables, there's no problem with we put probiotic as a starter culture, so we can have the probiotics. But also we have to maintain during transportation. Because what we need if we want to have the probiotic benefits, that we have to maintain the live microorganism. So the big question is, how about when we, for example, a chocolate bar or any kind of food that undergo processing, boiling, and etc. So first we have to encapsulate the probiotic. So the probiotics should be protected using many encapsulant, such as also could be use prebiotics or oligosaccharides. And then the second key is the time, or the correct time, the critical when you incorporate to the food. So when the production, including drying, or including boiling, including frying, so you have to add the probiotic usually in the form of the powder after processing. So like dusting with probiotics or mixing the probiotics before molding, for example, or when in the state is not very hot, but when the state where we still can mix with the probiotics. Okay. So usually in the form of the powders. Yeah.
Okay, very clear that it is really affect, but how to have the probiotic, that is the innovation and process on that processed food that we have to implement.
Yes.
Yeah. Doctor, come to the last question, very politic question, I would say. from many of the pre-question and live question. As you are the researcher and working with many manufacturers to give like idea and advice, now BPOM, to the audience that not in Indonesia, BPOM is like FDA, okay, Indonesian FDA. Is there any regulation that clearly state about approval of probiotic, and if that is not really approved in the local level as you working in the industry, how you want to encourage local producer to really look at moving to produce probiotic type of product as like functional food, because the market is demanding now?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. The regulations regarding probiotics in BPOM is under legislation of claim. I think many other countries in Southeast Asia also the regulations under a claim. Okay, under claim. So
it can say like health claim.
Yeah, health claim.
Okay.
Yes, they're under health. Yeah, health claim. Yes, yeah. So the regulations under health claim, where in Indonesia regulation cover a nutrition claim and a function of nutrition as well as health claim and any other function. But as probiotic is, I mentioned before, that very specific for strains. So although similar genera, similar species, but the beneficial functions of the microorganism of the organism with the similar species may be different, because as one, the key is probiotic is strain specific, and also the function or the functional characteristic of each probiotic may also specific to its function. For example, some probiotics may be good in lowering cholesterol, but not for lowering or for helping preventing diabetes, for example, and alternately. So to be able to be claimed as probiotics, many countries, it's not only Southeast Asia, I think many countries follow the outline or not the regulations, but the step on how to evaluate probiotic as outlined by WHO in 2002. So far, that's a framework from the WHO 2002 is still adopted by many countries that has to go to in vitro, in vivo, and clinical trials. So so far, that's because the function is very specific. But how to, now the question is how to promote, okay, to promote the, especially for traditional fermented foods. Although if we cannot have the probiotics, but there are so many health beneficial function from fermented foods, as I mentioned before. During fermentation, the lactic acid bacteria could produce bioactive compound. For example, from milk, although the microorganisms which is present in the fermentation is not proven as probiotic, however, during the metabolisms of lactose from milk, the microorganisms will secrete lactase or beta-galactosidase, which is helpful to help us as Asian people to alleviate lactose intolerance. And there are many others like peptide. Peptide is always produced by during fermentation, and some of the peptide have different function, as some as antioxidant, and maybe some other also helping in regulating blood pressure. Although the concentration cannot be compared with the medicine, because fermented food is that the medicine just helping to prevent to maintain well-being.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Lilis and terima kasih. So it's very nice presentation, and definitely I will share you the question that we could not finish in this session through your email. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the audience, more than 300 that's staying with me today. So for the next episode of Food Ingredients Asia in Indonesia, we are bringing you to know about food and beverage demand in ASEAN. So let's stay tuned with us through our social network, Facebook, Food Ingredients Asia. So on 8th of September, you will learn more about the demand, is what is going on right now in ASEAN. And for today's presentation, this episode we get sponsored from ADM Fibersol. So thank you very much for the CFAS IPB University in Bogor. Thank you. สวัสดีค่ะ
Like a Hellcat.